Heyman has returned to the WWE after a little layoff, and I tell you, my friends, what an asset to the pro wrestling landscape he is. Now, in case you don't know, as well as being the wise man behind the scenes, he is so integral to the Roman Reigns bloodline storyline, and for a bunch of other people who want to know about characters and want to know about narratives. I mean, the amount of superstars that go, oh man, anytime I need advice, I go to Mr. Heyman. When you do jump into his history as well, I tell you dudes, he could be one of the most influential figures in all of sports entertainment. And why? Here's why. So let's start with the bloodline, because obviously there are so many factors that threw WWE back into the stars, but Roman Reigns was one of the biggest ones when he did turn heel. And how did WWE make sure they solidified this and told you, oh man, we are going in a different direction? They teamed in with flipping Paul Heyman. Since then, it's just been 4+ years of wonderfulness, which is a dumb sentence, and we even saw at the War Games that we're not stopping here, and sometimes we're going to go left, and sometimes we're going to go right, and between them and Triple H and who knows who else, they are going to come up with the stories to keep you entertained. I would also say that it goes further than this though, because the bloodline has been so successful, you can see in other facets of WWE, they have gone, well, this structure works over here, so why don't we put it over here? Then it's a success over there, so they go and put it over this way as well. All of a sudden, you have brand new foundations to build upon. I mean, ever since then, we have seen more groups, we have seen more faction warfare, and of course, we've seen a lot of teams going, I don't think I like you anymore, and maybe we're gonna break up. And sure, WWE has certainly done that way too much. They got a little bit carried away. But let's go back to that Raw segment when the New Day did their thing. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods basically turned on Big E. I would hazard a guess that if this was 5 years prior, WWE wouldn't have gone anywhere near this, but given everything that has clicked with the bloodline, they were like, oh my gosh, emotions do work. Listen, I've said this before, I'll say it again. We got one of the best segments you've ever seen on TV. And there is the magic words as well. It is all about great television. Because no matter where you do end up, if you can insert your feelings and go, oh, well, I had a terrific time, then everybody has done their job. And that's pretty much what we've been getting. And every single story has been a little bit different. And that's where I'm convinced that Paul Heyman sticks his oar in. Because ever since his ECW days, Paul's mantra has always been, well, you push the strengths and you hide the weaknesses, because then you are able to showcase a wrestler or whoever in their best possible light. I mean, take the Judgment Day, for example. You cannot tell me that Paul Heyman hasn't helped Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, because they just come across like excellent badasses. Their confidence is through the roof. And even if you do jump over to AEW, I think you can see some elements of this. And no, this isn't me saying AEW's copying WWE. It's looking at the industry and trying to figure out what is going to work. I mean, everything with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders BCC shigamadig, that was kind of hanging over the spectre of the company that was meant to give you the heebie-jeebie. I mean, it's mostly seeing what the industry wants and ensuring that you feed it. And here, you did have Moxley trying to make a bigger deal of the world title and a bunch of brand new wrestlers being like, damn it, I want that shiny belt. So yeah, there's things you can invest in. I'm not saying they're doing a great job or they're doing a bad job, only you can decide that, but the effort is clear to see. There's also a bunch of shocks and surprises, like the death of Bryan Danielson. I mean, we quite literally choked him with a bag, and in terms of kayfabe, we haven't seen him since, so I think that he must be dead. So that's just a world unto itself. But even if we jump back to the mid-90s, or the late 90s, once again, you can kind of see Paul Heyman painting his brush. Because if you do go tune into ECW now and then watch WWE in the Attitude Era, or anything WCW was doing in 1996, don't pretend that they weren't also observing Extreme Championship Wrestling, being like, man, they got a bunch of new ideas, we should just take them. I mean, going back to the Attitude Era, that was essentially just ECW, but with a bigger budget. That's when Paul Heyman did fall down. He didn't have the money to compete. I mean, Tony Khan totally gets this too, because he used to visit a bunch of Extreme Championship Wrestling shows. And what did he do back in November 2024? We had the November Rain video, which was just a big wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the past. Even when ECW folded, Paul Heyman was still brought in to help behind the scenes when he started to write SmackDown. Do you remember the SmackDown 6 and how for a while the blue brand was better than the red brand, and up to that point that had never happened before? I mean, even when he fell out with Vince McMahon because of this, he always came back and there was always another job waiting because again, game knows game, man. Paul Heyman knew how to smash it. Once again, there's also dozens of wrestlers from the past, present, and future who say, man, do I enjoy talking to Heyman? So just sit down and think about it. What would wrestling be like without this man? I actually think it'd be vastly different, and probably for the worse. I mean, his impact on the industry over the last 30 years has been nothing short of incredible. we do then return to the bloodline and what Paul Heyman thinks about this. Well, he spoke about it when doing a podcast with Rick Rude. Because when he was asked about Sami Zayn joining the crew, he said, "The Sami story was the story of acceptance. I've given this before, so I apologize. It's not unique, but the application of this explanation still applies." Sounds like he's dropping bars. Anybody that's been past 7th or 8th grade can relate to this. You're in high school, you're sitting at a table, you look at another table and you say, "I want to sit with those guys." And your friends will say, "Yeah, but they're assholes, and yeah, I know they're assholes, but I still want to sit with them." But isn't that just a great way to look at wrestling? Also, if you do have some time, go and listen to the whole thing, it's great. He's also been a guy that has always put listening to the fans first and foremost in order to shape his storylines. And it's pretty obvious when you do see behind the scenes stuff that he absolutely has the ear of one Triple H. I mean, that's most definitely true when it comes to the bloodline. But yeah, go and watch that Hall of Fame induction speech on how everybody who's in attendance lights up like a Christmas tree. They understand the brilliance. One day he will no longer be part of the setup because very sadly that's just how the world works. And I tell you, you better hope that another Paul Heyman does come along so that this Paul Heyman can train him up. Otherwise, there's going to be a big gaping hole in the business. I mean, given that Heyman likes to make baseball references all the time, his hit ratio is quite incredible. Think of all the Paul Heyman guys that have come and gone. 99.9% of the time, he was absolutely right. He's also a modern example of never living in the past and always trying to see where wrestling should be right now, given the modern day. And he also just wants to give a 2024 audience what they want. I mean, this can't be ignored. So many other people in his position just crap on what wrestling is at the moment all the time, and it gets a bit exhausting. Isn't it nicer when instead we use that experience and we try? Here's the other deal with Paul Heyman as well that we should catch up on in 2024. He has been doing this for a long ass time and he's still incredibly relevant, not just behind the scenes. Look what he did recently in front of the screen with CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Obviously anything CM Punk and Roman Reigns did together would be big box office, but the fact that you have Paul Heyman as a wise man and Paul Heyman is basically CM Punk's biggest friend and biggest advocator, well, that just makes it even better. So once again, I've said it once, I'll say it 472 times, Heyman is a secret sauce. And I bet at some point in 2025, we do the Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, CM Punk thingamajig, and Heyman is going to have to choose a side, and when he does, it's going to break you no matter who you do support. I mean, can you imagine if he turned his back on Punk? And can you imagine if he turned his back on Roman Reigns? If you want my guesseroo, I actually think he will quit being the wise man. Then water can come out of your seeing devices. So it just goes to show, when it comes to pro wrestling, we need more Paul Heyman. Or the amount we have been getting from him. Basically, he has balanced this perfectly. So yes, all the props to Paul Heyman as far as I'm concerned. I shall repeat myself. He is one of the most important aspects of pro wrestling for essentially the last 3 decades. That's absolutely true when it comes to 2024/2025 WWE as well. And long may this continue. If you want to put somebody on a pedestal that gets pro wrestling, my first round pick is the Paul list of Heymans. Now, of course, you're going to have plenty of thoughts about this, so drop me a line below. I'm sure Paul Heyman has his haters as well, so go nuts with the comments, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And if you want more noise from this guy, click the video on the screen right now. Otherwise, my friends, I appreciate you, and again, make sure you just enjoy wrestling as much as you can because it's a great old time. And I'll see you on the next one.